You know the deal already. I'm going to survive 100 days in hardcore Minecraft. And like every other YouTuber out there, I also need a twist to my story. So if you didn't read the title, I'm going to survive in a jungle-only world. But that isn't a twist, because there are people who have actually done this already. So I needed to up the difficulty even more. And I did so by changing the settings to floating islands. I present you Sky Jungle. Wow, let me tell you, that took the difficulty up to a whole new level. I was going to have goals like fighting the dragon or beating the wither, but those aren't the rules of the Sky Jungle. You see, simply surviving is hard enough. So that is my goal, survive 100 days. But perhaps if we get 20 likes on this video, I will fight the dragon in a 200 days video. But now, without further ado, let me tell you how I survived 100 days in a Sky Jungle world. Being the early bird on day one, I immediately got to work getting the starter resources upon entering the world. I thought that entering a cave would be a good start to get some stone tools and iron as quick as I possibly can. Thankfully, this skeleton was quick to remind me that that was a very bad idea. So I dug a little hole instead. As soon as I could, I made myself a stone axe to test out a data pack that automatically chops down trees. And wow, that was loud. I quickly chopped down a second tree to check if it is that loud every single time. Yep, I'm gonna need hearing aids when I'm done recording. After deafening myself for a while, I found a mob-free cave and got myself some iron and coal. After a while, I also found my first food source in the game, melons. And because resources are so scarce in this world, melons was my only food source up until day 33. Of course, learning how to parkour is one of the few things that you are going to have to learn in order to survive in the Sky Jungle. Running on the ground almost always means death, as kamikaze creepers can spawn in trees and rain down on you, as well as the occasional horde of zombies that await around every turn. Trust me, I know. I lost count of my retries around 15 lost worlds. At the end of day one, I at least had a safe place to stay and overlook the area. But I also realized I had forgot to set my day counter, so instead of just waiting for day, I took the time to fix this while night was passing. Who said you can't be productive all day every day? Ask me in the comments down below if you want a video on how to make this day counter yourself. Day 2. I was eager to get going. I'm still on a time limit here and I want to find a nice high spot up in the trees for a starter base. I also want to start up a melon farm as soon as possible so food stops being a problem. The first night base has done its job, but my experience of Sky Jungle tells me it isn't safe enough. So the first chance I got, I immediately started to explore the area. I soon found a bunch of trees that seemed very promising, so I decided to make myself a safe way up. But you see, I'm not very used to these data packs, which I had totally forgotten about. So... well, I suppose I needed the wood either way. And after a day of exploring, I headed back to my first night base. It would seem I need to spend one more night there. Hopefully I can find someplace better soon. It was around the end of day 3 that I finally found something that would seal the deal on my new base. You see, I'm not sure about the jungle-only world, but in a jungle sky world, pumpkins are very rare. So seeing this filled me with hope. Of course, pumpkins wasn't the reason I chose this place as a base, but it made me want to survive even more, as that is one less thing I have to find. And so after making sure that the automatic tree chopper was turned off, I secured a route up to the tree and got myself a nice look of the land. I have seen better places for a base, but this will do. Before the morning of day 4, I had made myself a comfy way down on the ground so I could easily start a strip mine in search of iron. And since it was day, I thought it might be a good idea to search for more resources. But of course, as usual, skeletons to the rescue, reminding me that it is a very bad idea. So I started cleaning up my base instead. With a few extra leaves in hand, I started on something I call the precarious roads. Why do I call it the precarious roads? One shot from a skeleton and you're dead. But in the long run, the precarious roads are the only source of travel that will offer some sort of safety and allow you to travel both day and night. After doing that, I started working on my melon farm. The sooner I get food, the better. After that, I went to my first mining session. And lo and behold, skeletons to the rescue again. I was underprepared and he made sure to remind me. I quickly made myself a shield and decided to brave the skeleton once more. But following the nice guy skeleton trend, he knew I wasn't a match for him. So he did the only thing he could do and vanished. You know, I never could stop getting queasy at seeing these black holes. I even get shaky whenever I build over the void. So it was a great relief to escape the mines on day 5 and continue on my safety net of roads. And on the morning of day 6 I finally finished up the farm area. However, I didn't have any water yet, so I couldn't plant anything, which made me work even harder on my precarious roads, as I need to travel long distances to find resources. And at the end of day 6 I finally reached a place that would become my first leaf quarry, as well as the first body of water I could find. And at the end of day 6 I finally planted my melons. Day 7. I didn't really do much on day 7. I just kept working on my roads, hoping to find cows, chicken, sheep, maybe even sugarcane. You know, anything that can help with the progress. On day 8 I finally struck gold, a single white sheep. But I knew better. If I go down there, I'm going to be surrounded by mobs within seconds. I mean, you can even see their hitboxes lurking in the corners. Though I must say I was very tempted to get my hands on that zombie villager. I mean, look how close he was, just an arm's reach. So I know he did this just to piss me off. No matter what anyone says, that was intentional. On day 9 I realized I had forgotten to grow wheat, but at the very least I managed to capture him so it doesn't disappear on me. I also harvested enough wool to get me a bed. Those phantoms are very scary when you're standing on a 1 block wide bridge over the void. I also made another attempt today at getting those pumpkins, but as usual they are very well guarded. Oh yeah, I also finally got rid of those phantoms. Day 10. I finally found a gap in the guard schedule. So I took as much as I could possibly get my hands on and ran out of there with arrows whizzing by my ears. And with the biggest heist completed, I could start farming pumpkins as well. I didn't do much on day 11, but on day 12 I finally got this bugger to my base. I also managed to find one of these brown variants. Day 13, not only did I find a chicken today, I also found a second cow. But as if to cancel out my luck, the Minecraft god decided to pull a prank on me. I felt so many emotions in that second I had to take a rest, and maybe change my pants as well. Day 14 and 15 I kept working on the road, when I finally saw the final sheep to add to my collection. And of course the Minecraft god just had to rub it in. When I finally find one, they give me a herd. On day 17 I decided I want to improve the quality of life in my travels. Now I can run unhindered everywhere I want to go. But on day 18 something very magical happened. There is a resource in the Sky Jungle that can spawn. That this is actually the first time I've ever witnessed it. Sand. Now I have witnessed it in creative worlds when I was flying thousands and thousands of blocks. But this was the first time I had actually found it in game. So naturally, as a grown man with a lot of patience, I immediately wasted all of my resources trying to reach it. Even though I knew it was completely pointless. Because I don't actually have any use for glass just yet. And on day 19 you would be excused for thinking that I actually learned something the first time, but no. I didn't learn anything. I went straight back, got more resources and wasted all of those resources as well. At the very least, on the bright side, on day 20 I had built myself the fastest bridge yet. No other precarious bridge was ever built this fast. And while returning from my base, I also made one of the bigger discoveries. I saw a little green dot that turned out to be sugarcane. This was the final resource that I had been looking for. Melons, pumpkins, and sugarcane are about the only resources you can find in the Sky Jungle. And now they were all in my possession. Aside from the loot you can find in jungle temples, of course. When I returned home, I went on probably my biggest mining spree yet. I didn't even ascend to the surface once, until the end of day 21. Which was when I started to plan for a bigger crop field. I had more than enough melons and pumpkins to survive, but enough isn't enough for me. Enough for me is when I earn more than I can spend, and that, my friends, is quite a ways away. So I will have to settle for a bigger crop farm for now. And as you can probably see, the days are just whizzing by. I did do things in between, but I have no idea what took such an unhealthy amount of time. I've lost my notes on day 25, but it would appear, looking at the footage, I simply did chores. Like finally getting a gate to my base, or lighting up the area beneath my new farm that had become a very dangerous mob farm. And then I also had this scary encounter. Thank God I didn't die to it. If I did die to it, I imagine I would get a cease and desist letter from a certain fila. On day 26, however, I am very certain I did chores, because all I've written in my notebook is chores. And I can comfortably say that doesn't leave a lot of room for interpretation, because you see, I know words. Oh, I forgot this pillar. This lovely dirt of pain was supposed to transport grass up to my sheep so they can eat and regrow their fur. But it was so incredibly slow that I started using every trick in the book I knew just to make it grow just that little bit faster. Right, I also made this sorry excuse of a storage system. I humbly apologize for triggering your OCD. Day 27 was a day like no other. I quite literally filled my pockets with leaves, because I had a very big project coming up, namely my first proper farm. You see, to progress I'm going to need villagers, and that means spider eyes. In Sky Jungle, getting spider eyes isn't the easiest of tasks. Yes, I could just run around in the jungle killing spiders left and right, but the problem is, in Sky Jungle, there are no diamonds, which means no diamond armor and no enchanting. But that doesn't mean this is safe either, just look at that mosh pit of mobs. If I'm not careful, one stray arrow will end it all. Or one jumping poison spider. Or one kamikaze creeper. Or one ninja zombie. Jesus, I've died in a lot of weird ways. As you can see, I spent a lot of days on this project, placing one block at a time. The key to making this farm is being slow and steady, making traps, blocking off areas. And if you have a bow, I would suggest using that as well. And would you look at this, good guy skeleton strikes again. He must have realized he was the only one left and sacrificed himself for the good of man. And when I was done securing the questionable mine shaft, I spent the entirety of day 32 just harvesting. Apparently it takes a full day to harvest and replant all of it. I had no idea. And on day 33 I got myself the biggest upgrade yet. Pumpkin pies. And apparently I also flexed with it on top of a tree. And apparently that's all I did on day 33. Because on day 34 I'm back to harvesting leaves again. Because you see, securing the questionable mine shaft, I drained away an entire inventory of leaves. I also took the time to make myself a healthy amount of jack-o'-lanterns. Having a big solid collection of these will never hurt. I then finally got to work actually building the farm. But it would appear I was a bit too hectic actually getting the farm done, as I didn't actually have the resources to build it. So, mining spree, here I come! I also did another harvest on day 38, but I don't think you wanna see that one more time, so let's just skip to day 39, where I finally finished the farm. sake, I almost spent harvesting crops all of day 40 as I have an attention span of a 3-year-old. I was supposed to only get 2 buckets of water and yet I spent a whole day harvesting. But eventually I finally got the farm working. This was actually the first time I've ever made this farm, and I've learned so much. I also learned that you should never, ever close the trapdoors. That, my friends, was such an experience and a half that I had to take the day off. Thanks to that experience, I spent 4 more days just harvesting crops in fear. But day 45, I wanted my base to look even cooler, so I made my main tree double the size. And this was a good thing because scanning the area around me, I actually found a lava lake. And while mining for resources, I accidentally found a way to get rid of the guards that had been guarding the pumpkins. Revenge at last! But I still had an issue with iron, so on day 46 I just went back to mining. Naturally, I had also run out of wood, so I spent day 47 correcting that error. Naturally, I didn't forget to pick up a few leaves while I was there either way. On the night of day 48, I finally started making a bridge over to the lava pool. If I don't remember incorrectly, I was in a rush, trying my very best to get to the nether. And on day 49, I was looking down at the lava pool. Day 50, I finally started working on my nether portal. This might be a very unusual way to get the nether portal, but, you know, it works. So, on the night of day 50, I finally reached the nether. Now, I've had better spawning places, but beggars can't be choosers. Now, going on my experience, running around in iron armor in hardcore in the nether is a very, very bad idea. So I made a copy of my world, found a fortress, and got the coordinates, and made myself a precarious roads nether version. Actually, I'm going to skip a few days here as it was basically me just digging out a hole and running back and forth, getting resources. But on day 57, I finally finished the farm. I've never really understood why everyone keeps using speedrunner tactics, running in and getting up close and personal to these blazes. It's lunacy, I tell you. I mean, look, it's so much easier just making a farm. To each their own, I guess, but smacking away at these blazes at the end of the day was a very nice feeling. As soon as day 58 came, I started gathering resources for turning zombie villagers into villagers. I've had enough. I want tools, armor, redstone, the lot of it. And when I thought I had it all, I just waited for the darkness to engulf the world. But I quickly changed my mind, because if I'm going to have zombie villagers here and villagers eventually, I need some place to store them. So I guess you could say I made a little starter hut as a temporary solution to my problems. I also made sure to put slabs under the leaves in case a fire breaks out. If they survive the fire, they will at the very least not fall down to the bottom. That way I don't have to get new villagers. That is if the Minecraft gods get any funny ideas. But in the morning of day 59, there was a little prison for the there was a little hut for the villagers. After that, I basically just kept doing chores again and waiting for night. You know, the usual, feeding the cows, the sheep, or fighting off an enderman. When night came, I was like an owl. I ran across all over the precarious roads just trying to find one zombie villager. Now, in my infinite wisdom, when I finally saw one, I decided to go the other way. You see, I thought it would be a good idea to get a leather helmet for it, to make it not despawn and protect it from the sun. Even now, looking back at the footage, I can't understand just how on earth I came to that conclusion. Now, me being in my bright mind, I thought, nah, they were easy to find. I mean, it took less than 20 minutes to find one. I mean, how hard could it be? Little did I know it would take another 11 nights until I finally saw a second zombie villager. So let's fast forward to that. Day 60. I found a zombie spawner very close to my base. Perhaps I can use that as a farm. I have no idea how I managed to see this next one, but I did it. And then, of course, when night came, I started running around like a fool looking for a zombie villager. Day 61, I made sure to clock myself to ensure that I don't miss night. But I headed into the nether in search of gold. And gold I found. As long as you stay in the nether wastes biome, there seems to be a very large amount of gold nuggets to be had. And I swear the Minecraft gods are teaching the mobs new tricks every day. I was so badly surprised by this, I was unsure what to do, but it worked out in the end. And then the timer rang and I returned to zombie villager hunting. But we know how that turns out, so... Day 62, I actually saw an invisible spider today. You know, for a full 2 seconds before the creeper blew it up. And I swear, someone out there is teaching these mobs. They come in pairs now. On the night of day 62, I actually decided to farm instead. I even kept doing it for so long that when night on day 63 came, I finally made myself a sugarcane farm. I don't remember this, but I must have been quite determined. Day 64 and I was still doing farms. But at the end of the day, I went down mining for more resources. Now that I'm editing this, I'm actually starting to wonder if I forgot about the zombie villager. Going on my track record, I wouldn't be very surprised. No wait. I was gathering resources for day 65. I was planning on turning this place into an arena, specifically for mobs.
But mobs can't fight each other.
I hear you say, but this isn't a fighting arena. Mobs are meant to spawn in there, and the walls keep them locked in. That way I can reset the spawning and finally get my zombie villager. Day 66, I did the traditional leaf gathering before a big project. Day 67, I made good use of those leaves, as I put a roof on my precarious road. Now if I do catch a zombie villager close to dawn, it will not burn up. One can never be too safe when outsmarting the Minecraft gods. And when night fell, I started working on a water elevator that would take me 128 blocks above the arena. Why 128 blocks? If a mob is 128 blocks away from you, it will instantly despawn, unless you have given it a piece of armor, an item, or put a tag on it. But using this information, I can build a pillar that is 128 blocks high and force everything to despawn and then respawn inside the arena. And hopefully, I can finally get myself a zombie villager. Party in the elevator. When day 68 finally arrived, I was still working on it. How? Why? Bad zombie, do not belong here. On day 69, I finally reached my destination. If I just go up another 4 blocks, everything will despawn in the arena. And when I was done with that, I just spent the rest of the day improving the security measures around the arena to reduce any risk of any unfortunate accidents. And when night fell, I was eager to try it out. And as you can see, I also made that extra 4-block perch so I can get rid of any unwanted mobs. But even when I had this contraption set up, zombie villager spawning is still very rare. So with no luck on day 69, I decided to harvest for the rest of day 70. Big surprise! On the night of day 70, I once more went back to the arena to try my luck. Who would have thought? But I believe it was on the 3rd attempt that I finally found a zombie villager. I had a very hard time to contain my excitement, but I knew that I needed to get this guy into protection as soon as possible, as well as to cure him as he absolutely refused to pick up any items at all. Thankfully, at least he wasn't accompanied by a horde of mobs. I mean, imagine if a creeper blew him up just as I finally found one. But knowing the Minecraft gods, it all went a bit too smoothly, which made me very paranoid when I realized that the sun was starting to rise. It was almost like a battle. Who will win, the zombie or the sun? But thankfully I had a bridge with a roof. So not this time, Minecraft gods. I win this round. Let it be known, I really tried to get this guy to pick something up. I gave him some items, sacrificed my shovel, and I even presented him with my own helmet. Don't be stingy, you might despawn one day. I quickly went and gathered all the resources that I had been collecting for transforming this villager. And it was at this exact moment I realized I don't have any mushrooms? Oh. In an act of desperation, I even tried to give him a weapon. Just pick something up, I beg you. Eventually, I just gave in to fate and took one last look at the villager. I guess it means the Minecraft gods win this round. When playing in a sky jungle world, I only know of one place you can find mushrooms, and that would be the Nether. You know, I started thinking I should probably build a mob farm. Perhaps that way it might be a little bit faster. Because I know that zombie isn't going to be there when I get back. But you know what? He's still there. I was thrilled beyond measure. I even did a Minecraft wiggle that shows that I'm happy. Honestly, getting a zombie villager here has been quite the journey, but it is indeed one I do not regret. Seeing that villager finally convert was probably one of the more emotional moments in my life. Of course, I was completely out of patience, so I immediately got him a fletching table. Naturally, I was too excited of a stick deal that I immediately traded. And I also immediately regretted it, because now I have no way of getting arrows. Oh well, I have survived for the past 72 days without an arrow, so I suppose I can survive a few more days without them. I already have a use in mind for this villager, so I haven't really lost anything. And of course, you know, I spent the night trying to find a second villager. On day 73, I thought it's high time I start looking at other possible projects to create. And that basically only means one thing. Naturally, I didn't forget to spend the night in the arena. On day 74, I remembered I actually have potatoes now, so I made sure to harvest them as quickly as possible. I need to increase my crop inventory, so I have a lot to trade with. And naturally, my attention span of a 3-year-old strikes again. And I spent another entire day just harvesting. And you know the drill by now. On day 75, I needed more wood as that villager is very hungry for sticks. And it's totally not my fault. You hear me? Not my fault. On the night of day 75, I actually skipped villager hunting. I know some of you will recognize this farm immediately. But for those of you that doesn't recognize this is the easiest mob farm you could ever build. I mean, I even built it out of wood, which makes it even easier to build. Because there are very few situations where you don't have access to wood. And so, on day 78, I was finally finished with my mob farm. And naturally, in my infinite patience and wisdom, I started whacking away at the mobs, completely forgetting I was supposed to get a zombie villager. I even accidentally ended one, though ending the life of that one did remind me of why I made this mob farm to begin with. Even though the mobs end up with 1 heart each, they still spawn during daytime. And because I built the farm so high up, there is no other place for them to spawn, which makes this farm extremely effective. And on day 79, I finally heard the long-awaited zombie villager grunts. I finally had my second zombie villager. But you see, I had to be quite careful. He could quite literally die of 1 punch. And I wasn't looking to become a replacement for Saitama Sensei. But eventually I got him to where he needs to be. A greater joy has never been found. Out of all of my retries, this is actually the first time I managed to cure zombie villagers. And as soon as he turned, I made sure to immediately set things up for breeding and trading. Ladies and gentlemen, I present you my village. Day 81 had probably one of the biggest milestones yet, covering myself in diamonds. I was so excited that when I ran out, I almost actually forgot to close the doors behind me. And I gotta say, getting those first pieces on was a real moment. Of course, I didn't stop there. There's still so much to do and so little time, so I immediately returned to trading. And so, on day 82, I finally had my full set of diamond armor. So after flexing for a bit, I came to the understanding that my trading area might be a little bit too small. And by now, I bet you can imagine what happens next. Leaf quarry number 4, here I come. There was so much leaf gathering that I even continued doing it on day 83. And naturally, when I got back, I wasted no time expanding upon my villager trading area. I eventually finished it up on day 84. And on day 85, it's finally moving day. You could say these villagers are moving up in the world. They don't have one cell anymore, they have an entire courtyard. While I still don't have the preferable solitary boxes, the courtyard is a very good way to start. Of course, I also installed a few lights with eyes. I believe this will help them remember that they are always being watched. And with the faces turned away from the gate, there will probably not be any complaints from any pesky health investigators, as they aren't allowed in the courtyard. Day 86. Today I sacrificed my stone axe to the Minecraft gods. It might not give me luck, but perhaps I can go one day without fearing for my life. Or perhaps they might just take it as an insult as I threw my crappy stone axe and started using iron axes instead. I sure hope they do. Day 87. I realized that the villagers had a very nice life. I also remember that they aren't giving me many free things, which is odd. I have given them housing, yet instead I am the one that's paying them with sticks, pumpkins and melons. Surely it's high time to start paying the rent. These properties aren't free. They do cost time and precious leaves that I could use for my precarious roads. So I decided to make a little labor camp known as an iron farm. On day 89, I introduced some new beds. If I want workers, I need to produce workers first. And since I am such a divine Minecraft player, these villagers will never, ever go without a job. I also overheard one of the villagers talking today. Apparently, they call me the warden. I suppose it's true that a dear child has many names. Oh yeah, I also finally got my hands on some redstone. With redstone finally acquired, I believe that production will drastically increase. When night arrived, I made a little safety box around the jobless villagers. You see, I can't stand them having no job, so I decided to give them the best job ever. As soon as I'm finished with the construction, that is. Thankfully, I got suspicious on the placement of my iron farm. Had I continued building where I started, the iron farm wouldn't be loaded in most of the time, which means less iron, and we can't be having that now, can we? So instead of blindly shooting out an iron farm, I did some research, and using the Light Magicka mod, I searched for a better place for it. And on day 90, as soon as I had found it, I immediately went to building. The pressure is high, there is only 10 days left now. And at the end of day 91, it was finally time to move the zombie and villagers into place. I could have sworn I was productive on day 92, but apparently I didn't do much. But when night came, I finally snapped out of it and started working. And so in the morning of day 93, I was finally done with the building of the iron farm. Iron farms has always been a staple to the redstone community, so turning one on puts a huge grin on my face. However, it's not fully automatic yet. I need a timer. The best one would be a hopper clock. But to make a hopper clock, I need sticky pistons. And it just so happens that Jungle Temple actually have 3 sticky pistons. And I know where to find one. Stonks. When I got to the temple, I made sure to rob it of all of its essential items. Dispensers and pistons alike. And of course, as soon as I returned, I immediately started working on the clock. I then spent the entire day of day 95 just waiting for iron golems, so I could use their iron to create hoppers. That way I have an iron farm that is almost always on whenever I am in my base. On day 96, it was finally time to end this challenge. Normally at this point, every 100-day challenges start preparing for a boss battle or a show with fireworks. But I was too much in the moment. I wanted enchantments and I wanted it bad. So I spent all of days 96, 97, 98, and 99 just screaming at villagers to finally give me some good enchanting books. But in the morning of day 100, I had finally completed the challenge. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I have survived 100 days in a floating island's jungle-only hardcore world.